Hey, welcome. So today, we're going to look at a pretty intense historical tragedy, but through a lens you might not expect, and that's economics. We're going to unpack how organized violence can be a whole lot more than just an act of hate. It can actually be a really calculated economic strategy.
It's a heavy question, right? And when we try to answer it, we usually focus on the staggering, unimaginable loss of human life. And we should. But what if that's only part of the picture? What if the cost can also be measured in stolen futures and an engineered poverty that echoes for generations?
And this is the core idea we're digging into. The source material for this explainer makes a powerful argument that this historical event wasn't just about random destruction. Nope. It was a project, a blueprint, designed to forcibly move resources from one group to another, to completely reshape who owns what, and to lock in poverty for one community while enriching another.
Okay, so let's get into it. How on earth can violence actually function as an economic policy? Well, to really get it, we need to start with this key concept from economics that explains how some systems are basically built to fail for some people and, succeed wildly for others.
The term is extractive institutions, and it comes from a couple of economists, Darn Acemoglu and James Robinson. And their whole point is that some systems aren't broken. They are built this way, on purpose. They're specifically designed to pull wealth from the majority and funnel it right into the hands of a small ruling elite.
And this isn't some fringe idea. Economist Paul Collier really hammers this home. He points out that behind a lot of these terrible conflicts, there's a cold, hard economic calculation. Someone wants control over valuable stuff. This completely reframes the motive, moving it from pure ideology to just calculated greed.
So, if we apply this framework, the source argues that the violence against the Hazara people was a textbook case of creating one of these extractive institutions. It was a systematic, brutal project to transfer wealth, seize land, and basically lock an entire community out of the economy for good, all to make sure power stayed right where it was, with the ruling tribal system.
So, how was this economic project actually carried out? Well, the strategy was devastatingly simple. You just had to destroy the two fundamental things that allow any community to build wealth and thrive.
Just look at this number. It's staggering. 60%. According to the historical documents our source cites, that's the estimated percentage of the Hazara population that was killed. Think about that. This wasn't just a loss of life. It was the almost complete annihilation of a community's human capital.
The strategy was brutally efficient, attacking on two fronts. On one side, you have human capital. That's the people themselves, right? Their skills, their knowledge, their ability to work. And on the other side, you've got their physical capital, their land, their homes, all their stuff. To get total economic control, you have to go after both.
And the destruction of that human capital was terrifyingly systematic. It wasn't just the initial massacre. The people who survived were stripped of their rights, effectively turned into slaves. For decades after that, they were denied access to education and blocked from the formal economy. An entire generation that could have been doctors and engineers was instead forced into manual labor. You can see how that guarantees poverty for the long haul. At the exact same time, their physical wealth was just taken. Fertile lands were confiscated, handed over to tribes who were loyal to the regime. Then, the Hazara people were forced out, relocated to these barren, remote mountain regions where you can't grow anything. They were completely cut off from markets, from resources, from any chance to rebuild. It was a direct and permanent transfer of wealth.
So this initial shock, the violence, the dispossession, it wasn't just a horrible one-time event. It was actually the first step in creating this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle of poverty. And believe it or not, there's an economic term for exactly how this works.
It's called path dependence, and the idea is pretty simple. Where you end up is often a direct result of where you start. That initial shock, the genocide, the relocation, it set the community on this downward economic path that is just incredibly hard to break away from. The past isn't just the past, it's literally dictating the present.
And you can see that path dependence right here. It's a trap, really. First, you have the violent shock. Then, their assets are seized. Then, they're forced into these isolated regions. And finally, those new areas are just neglected. No investment in roads or schools or any infrastructure. Each step just reinforces the one before it, locking the community deeper and deeper into poverty. And listen, this isn't just some abstract history lesson. The consequences are being felt right now, today. The source points out that in the very same regions where the Hazara were relocated, provinces like Gore and Dekundi still lack basic things like paved roads. The routes get completely cut off by snow for months every winter, totally isolating them from the rest of the country's economy. That's path dependence in the 21st century.
So you have to ask, if a community is trapped by its own history, how does it ever break free? This is where the analysis shifts, moving from just explaining the past to actually proposing a way forward. And it's a way forward that isn't about trying to turn back the clock.
The idea here is a really radical pivot. Since the old economy, the one based on the land that was stolen, is gone, well, the only path forward is to just leapfrog it entirely, to build a new economy that isn't based on land at all, but on knowledge.
And this is the blueprint for that new economy. The focus has to be on modern education. We're talking science, we're talking technology. The whole goal is to create a super skilled workforce that can plug into the global digital economy. Because think about it, in a world of AI and remote work, where you are physically and who owned what land 100 years ago, it starts to matter a whole lot less.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Real reconstruction, real progress, isn't about trying to get back what was lost. It's about building something totally new. Something that those old extractive systems just can't control. It's about using innovation as the ultimate tool for liberation.
And so, that's where we'll leave it. The source lays out this incredibly powerful argument that the chains of history, chains that were forged through violence and economic exclusion, they might just be breakable. But it all really hinges on this one question. In this battle between a past defined by land and a future defined by knowledge, can technology actually forge a brand new path? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.